Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 193 based on novel. So let's start. Xianzuan twisted his lips and said, "How am I not being kind? At least I'm not hiding and withholding anything. I've imparted everything that I know to you. Otherwise, how could you have become a Class 9 Soul Engineer?" Yes, Wu Yuhao was a true Class 9 Soul Engineer now. Even though he was not a titled Doluo yet, he had completed the production of a Class 9 Soul tool. This was unquestionable. Wu Yuhao understood what Xianzuan was saying. "Teacher Xian, it's not that I'm not teaching you. It's that you aren't understanding." Xianzuan snapped, "That's because I don't have the ghost carving blade." It had been a year and a half, but Xianzuan and Hikaitu still didn't manage to learn the Rain Dragon's dance. They had only learned very minor parts of it. Their comprehension wasn't deep enough, which meant that the strength of the Rain Dragon's dance couldn't be fully unleashed. "You can't blame me for that," Wu Yuhao said helplessly. "This ghost carving blade has picked its owner. I have no choice." The reason why he could become a Class 9 Soul Engineer so quickly was because he had the ghost carving blade and knew the Rain Dragon's dance. The more he used and understood them, the more he understood the mysteries of the Rain Dragon's dance. He had learned a lot. This was the same for his self-created soul skills. "Teacher Xian, when can we start?" Wu Yuhao asked. Xianzuan said, "No rush. I'll conceptualize it first. Since you're almost done with the outer shell, I'll design a plan for this core part. Then we'll discuss where to go from there. There's no rush to take action. Given your current abilities, there should be no problem producing it." "All right." Wu Yuhao nodded. Xianzuan appeared pensive. "In fact, I've been thinking of how to make more extensive use of this model. If it works out, I believe we can change the entire world of soul tools." Wu Yuhao laughed bitterly. "How is it so easy? Haven't we already conceptualized it? We wanted to produce a spiritual energy amplifier to amplify spiritual energy, but it's too difficult. First, we don't know how to start. Secondly, who's going to test it?" Xianzuan also laughed bitterly. "You're right. There's no way of testing this thing. Furthermore, we can't make any headway. Let's take things slow. Let's finish whatever you have first. Once we finish it, we can stun the world of soul engineers. When that happens, hee." At this moment, a bald head poked through the door from outside. Xianzuan glanced up, and snapped, "What are you trying to do?" Hikaitu walked in from outside and chuckled, "I was afraid of disturbing the both of you." He was now an official Class 8 Soul Engineer too, since his soul power cultivation had reached 8 rings. As a food-type soul master, it was very difficult to increase his cultivation. The Qiankuan fortune pill was the most effective on him. Hikaitu sat in a chair and said, "Yuhao, can you make a trip to the academy? I heard Elder Xian and the others have ended their retreat." After hearing Hikaitu's words, Wu Yuhao's eyes brightened. "Elder Xian has exited his cultivation? That's great." When the Tang sect gave one Qiankuan fortune pill to Shrek Academy, Elder Xian went into closed-door cultivation with Yang Xiaozhe and Xian Lina. This was also decided after a conference in the Sea Gods Pavilion. The reason why only the 3 of them took the pill instead of the rest of the elders was because the future of the academy was taken into consideration. The effect of the Qiankuan fortune pill was indeed miraculous, but there were still limits. In addition, the condition of the person consuming the pill had to be taken into consideration too. For a 6-ringed or 7-ringed soul master, the effect would be much greater. However, for a titled Doluo, the effect was much less pronounced. This was especially so for these titled Doluo from Shrek Academy. Hence, Elder Xian, Yang Xiaozhe and Xian Lina were chosen to consume the pill after much consideration. Elder Xian was an obvious candidate because he was the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion and a rank 98 transcendent Doluo. He had the most hope of becoming an ultimate Doluo. What Shrek Academy lacked most right now was an ultimate Doluo. As for Yang Xiaozhe and Xian Lina, they were considered some of the younger ones in the Sea Gods Pavilion. However, they were already transcendent Dolor. They had the greatest potential for improving further. Yang Xiaosha was already a rank 96 title Dolor. Xian Lina was also a rank 95 title Dolor. They were going to be the future pillars of Shrek Academy. As a result, the three of them went into closed-door cultivation together and consumed the Qianquan fortune pill to break through their bottlenecks. Even the elders of Shrek Academy didn't expect them to be in closed-door cultivation for so long. They went into cultivation for 1.5 years. How could Hui Yuhao not be surprised when He Kaitu said that they had exited their retreat? He was most concerned about whether Elder Xian had made a breakthrough and became another ultimate Dolor after Elder Mu. If he was successful, it would be very beneficial for the academy and the Tang sect. Teacher Xian, I'll go and take a look. Hui Yuhao looked at Xian Ziwen. Xian Ziwen nodded at him and said, you can go. You don't have to come over the next few days. I believe that I'll need 10 to 15 days for my initial design. You can return after half a month. Hui Yuhao was officially a Class 9 Soul Engineer now. It also seemed like he was going to become better than Xian Ziwen too. Hence, Xian Ziwen was less strict on him. In terms of designing soul tools, Xian Ziwen was much more experienced. Furthermore, designing soul tools was very time-consuming. Hui Yuhao's cultivation was rising very quickly. Furthermore, he was also very young, and his potential was unlimited. Seeing that Hui Yuhao was already a Class 9 Soul Engineer, Xian Ziwen offered him much more freedom. All right. Hui Yuhao was delighted. He finally had time to rest. The amount of energy he drained every day from researching soul tools was much more than the amount of energy he drained from cultivating. Even though it was only 6 hours, his brain was operating at very high levels. He was extremely tired every day. After exiting the laboratory, Hui Yuhao asked He Kaitu, second senior, did the academy call anyone else apart from me? He Kaitu chortled and said, all right, let's quickly find Wutong and bring her along. He called for eldest senior, Yuan Wutong. Hui Yuhao was a little embarrassed as he laughed. He Kaitu immediately knew what he was thinking. Tang Wutong was just preparing to begin her meditation when Hui Yuhao returned. She was a little surprised, and quickly changed when she heard that the academy was calling her. After that, she went to the academy with Hui Yuhao. After exiting the Tang sect, Hui Yuhao suddenly felt as if his entire body had relaxed. He had not been out for a long time. It wasn't just him. Tang Wutong had the same feeling too. It had been close to 2 years since the two of them had reconciled with each other and begun cultivating together, but the number of times they had left the Tang sect in that time could be counted on one hand. Very soon, they entered the inner city of Shrek. Shrek City had been through enormous changes over the past few years. On the surface, the outer city didn't look too different from the inner city. The only difference was that the exterior of the outer city appeared to be much more modern than the inner city. The headquarters of the Spirit Pagoda was now in the outer city. This also brought Shrek City closer to the center of the three empires of the original Dolor continent. Many soul masters came to Shrek City. The number of businessmen was even greater, and most of them came from the original Heavenly Soul Empire. After the Heavenly Soul Empire was occupied by the Sun Moon Empire, these businessmen feared for their safety. For those who could, they chose to migrate. Naturally, Shrek City was their choice. Shrek City was protected by Shrek Academy. It was a city that had even resisted the strength of a beast wave from the Great Star Do Forest. It was definitely much safer than any empire on the original Dolor continent. In this way, Shrek City became much more vibrant. In just a few years, the city was now a concrete jungle. Furthermore, Shrek Academy had also learned from the strengths of the Sun Moon Empire, installing many soul tools in the new city. This earned the approval of many of the new migrants. Widespread use of soul tools brought convenience. In the areas that the Sun Moon Empire occupied, some of the Heavenly Soul Empire's citizens were still resisting the Sun Moon Empire. However, no such problem existed in Shrek City. Everyone only had good words for Shrek City. The changes to Shrek City have been immense. Tang Wutong was in awe. Hui Yuhao nodded and replied, yes. Right now, the scale of Shrek City is comparable to the Sun Moon Empire. Apart from the fact that we still need to work on our soul tools, the scale and popularity of the city is indeed comparable. Tang Wutong smiled and said, yes. I'm starting to like Shrek more and more. Hui Yuhao grabbed Tang Wutong's hand and glanced at her. She turned slightly red, but there was a look of bliss on her face. My dear, you're already a titled Dolor. We're not young anymore. Should we invite your family over and discuss our marriage? Tang Wutong turned red and rolled her eyes at him. She said, are you saying that I'm old? Hui Yuhao laughed, of course not. I'm only trying to settle this matter as soon as possible. I can't just wait forever. I've already been battered by your seal countless times. I'm starting to become traumatized. When Tang Wutong thought about how pathetic he was, she chortled and said, don't rush. I'll find a way to contact my father. When she mentioned her father, a worried look flashed across her eyes. Hui Yuhao didn't notice the change in her expression. Let's go. Let's not waste time and make Elder Xian wait for us. The establishment of the new Shrek City caused Shrek Academy to be situated in the center. Shrek Academy's Soul Tool Department and Martial Soul Department were both expanded. The Soul Tool Department and the Tang Sect Soul Tool Hall established close connections with each other, with the Soul Tool Department sending many talents to the Soul Tool Hall. Although it was morning now, all the students were in class. When the two of them walked into the academy, the entire academy was quiet. They crossed Sea God's Lake and came to Sea God's Island. The moment they landed on the island, Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong saw someone familiar. They were very obvious as they flew across the lake. That person naturally saw them too. Sutong? How are you? It's been a while. Hui Yuhao greeted her. That familiar person was Sutong, who possessed the Ice Sky Snow Lady and demonstrated her ultimate ice abilities during the Sea God's fated blind date. When she saw Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong, she was also slightly stunned. She was very pretty, and possessed the Ice Sky Snow Lady. Furthermore, she had a very elegant and cold aura about her. When she heard Hui Yuhao's greeting, she only nodded at him, but didn't say anything. She turned around and left. Tang Wutong covered her mouth and laughed. She said, it seems like she still hates you. Hui Yuhao sighed and said, it's also a problem to be too handsome. Are you very proud of yourself? Tang Wutong twisted her lips and replied, I don't think so. When I was dressed like a guy back then, where were you? Why couldn't I see that you were handsome? Hui Yuhao chuckled and replied, whether a guy is handsome can only be judged by a lady. The number one beauty in this world has already chosen me and become my wife. Doesn't this mean I'm the most handsome guy in this world? Tang Wutong rolled her eyes and wanted to retort, but couldn't really argue. Since when did you become so thick-skinned? Hui Yuhao sighed and said, I've been tortured by your seal every day. If I wasn't thick-skinned enough, I would have been disfigured by now, don't you think? Tang Wutong laughed and said, stop acting pitiful. Let's quickly go, and not make Elder Xian and the rest wait for us. When Tang Wutong and Hui Yuhao walked into the Sea Gods Pavilion, the long table in the main hall of the Sea Gods Pavilion was already fully seated. Apart from Hui Yuhao, the rest of the members of the Sea Gods Pavilion were present. Bei Bei was also one step ahead of him. Elder Xian was in the main seat. It didn't seem like his appearance had changed at all. However, Hui Yuhao could still subtly feel something different about him. Compared to before, his aura seemed to be much gentler and calmer. No soul power or spiritual undulations could be sensed from him. He seemed like an ordinary old man. Even his eyes appeared ordinary. However, his eyes couldn't be so clear if he was just an ordinary old man. Ah, you're here. Come, take a seat. Wutong, take a seat too. Elder Xian smiled as he nodded at Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong. It was only now that Hui Yuhao realized that there were 2 empty seats. It turned out that there was an extra chair beside his seat. It was important to know that the circular table represented the Sea Gods Pavilion, even though it only seemed like an ordinary table. Only members of the Sea Gods Pavilion were fit to sit around this table. Bei Bei and Hui Yuhao were the two existing Tang sect disciples who were part of the Sea Gods Pavilion. Bei Bei represented the Tang sect, while Hui Yuhao had earned his position because of his contributions to the academy. What about Tang Wutong? What did it mean that she had a seat today? Did it mean that the Tang sect had another member in the Sea Gods Pavilion? Since Tang Wutong had restored her memories, she had naturally returned to the Tang sect. She was a member of Shrek's 7 monsters. Hui Yuhao felt weird. Naturally, Tang Wutong had the same feeling. However, the two of them quickly sat down. They were already late. Therefore, they didn't dare to waste everyone's time any further. Elder Xian looked at Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong and said, "Don't the both of you feel weird? There's actually nothing to feel weirded out by. That Qianquan fortune pill was enough to earn the Tang sect another seat here. Furthermore, the Tang sect has been getting stronger day after day over the past few years. The sect complements the academy. It's only right that we increase the number of allocations of seats to the sect. Wutong, you are the first member of the Tang sect to become a titled Dolor. You shall take this seat temporarily." If he was guessing earlier, Hui Yuhao could confirm it now. He immediately said with surprise, "Elder Xian, have you succeeded?" Elder Xian smiled and there was a comforted look in his eyes. He answered, "I've finally overcome the last stage. It wasn't easy. This bottleneck has been troubling me for years. I can't even count how long I've been stuck. However, I've learned many things from this experience. It's a step to heaven. No wonder it was so difficult." Hui Yuhao was delighted. "Congratulations, Elder Xian." Elder Xian waved his hand and said, "I feel a little regretful when I think of it. Such a magical pill like the Qianquan fortune pill shouldn't be wasted on an old man like me. It should be given to younger people like the two of you. All right, I won't dwell on this. We'll get to our main topic. Before both of you came, we'd already voted and decided that a new seat shall be given to the Tang sect. Apart from you, we've already agreed on that through voting. Let's get to the topic of our discussion." Hui Yuhao was delighted. He turned his gaze to Yang Xiaozhe and Xian Lina. The two of them also appeared much more vibrant. They had also benefited greatly from more than a year of closed-door cultivation. Given Yang Xiaozhe and Xian Lina's original cultivation, an increase of just 1 rank in their cultivation was still a massive increase. At the tier of a transcendent Dolor, 1 rank was 1 entire level. Elder Xian said, "The Sun Moon Empire hasn't made a move over the past 2 years. They are so quiet I'm a little afraid. However, they've sealed all information even more tightly than before. Almost all their borders are covered with aerial surveillance soul tools. The 3 empires of the original Dolor continent have exhausted all the means at their disposal, but they've not gotten any concrete information. Xu Tianran is very ambitious. His disability has also made him an anti-hero. Not long ago, ambassadors from the 3 empires came together and invited us to join them on a mission. They didn't reveal any details, but they said it was targeted at the Sun Moon Empire's Radiant City. They hope we can send someone strong to join them. Everyone, please tell me what you think." Xian Lina asked, "Elder Xian, what's their goal?" Elder Xian said, "Assassinate Xu Tianran. Their reason is also very good. Xu Tianran only succeeded the throne not long ago, but he's already invading other empires. He's also achieved outstanding results. If Yuhao didn't help the Star Luo Empire regain control of the Mingdo mountain range, I'm afraid bigger problems would have surfaced. Furthermore, Xu Tianran's position in the Sun Moon Empire has also stabilized through this war. He's gotten rid of all his enemies, including his brothers that fought with him for the position of emperor. He's very brutal, but he's effective. He's aggressively developing offensive soul tools. We've been accumulating our strength over the past 2 years, but the Sun Moon Empire has been doing the same. I believe they'll attack on all fronts again in the future. This time, they'll be even more powerful than before, and we'll have a harder time resisting them." Elder Xian paused for a moment as he spoke until here. Then, he said, "From this assassination plan, we can tell that the 3 empires have also detected this danger that's brewing. This is why they've decided to make a move. Assassinating Xu Tianran won't be easy. He's bound to be surrounded by powerful individuals. However, the mission has already been put into motion. It can't be stopped anymore. Not many people will be involved, but they are all very strong. They didn't come here in the belief that we'll definitely help them. After all, we are still a neutral force, since there's no war. They only hope to borrow one person from us. Borrow? All the members of the Sea Gods Pavilion were shocked when they heard the word borrow. They were here to borrow one person? Who was that person? Only Hui Yuhao revealed a bitter smile when he heard Elder Xian's words. The rest couldn't guess, but how could he not? It was indeed not good to be overly famous. Although he was very famous among ordinary soul masters, he rarely appeared. However, who didn't know how effective he was? Without his surveillance and help, the Star Luo Empire wouldn't have regained control of the Mingdo mountain range. It was also his penetration that greatly weakened the Sun Moon Empire's frontline army. Without even mentioning the rest, his concealment and ability to resist aerial surveillance soul tools was highly looked upon by the three empires. Hui Yuhao guessed it. So did Bei Bei and Tang Wutong. To be honest, Hui Yuhao didn't want to leave this time. He was stuck at rank 89. It had been almost a year. He had been working very hard to try to reach the next rank, but he couldn't do it. Furthermore, Tang Wutong was back at his side. He had already started to like this peaceful life over the past 2 years. He really didn't want to take a risk now that he had a loved one by his side. Elder Xian turned his attention to Hui Yuhao. Yuhao, tell me what you think. Hui Yuhao lowered his head and said, if the academy wants me to go, I'll go. I'll listen to the instructions of the academy. Elder Xian smiled and said, don't you like to torture yourself? Why do you look so forced now? Hui Yuhao lifted his head and appeared calm again. He smiled and replied, I'm not. However, Elder Xian, can you consider this my graduation test if I leave this time? He had not forgotten his graduation test. He had already produced 2 Class 9 stationary soul cannon shells for Shrek Academy. As for challenging Dean Yang Shaoxia, he had not done so, as he was in closed-door cultivation. However, 2 out of the 3 years that the academy had given him had passed. Originally, Hui Yuhao had wanted to become a titled Dolor first before challenging Yang Shaoxia along with Tang Wutong. Should that happen, he would be more confident. However, it seemed like he couldn't do it before completing this mission. Elder Xian nodded and said, all right, this mission is tough enough. We'll use it as your graduation test. I can also promise you that you won't need to challenge Shaoxia after you finish this mission. It would mean that you are qualified enough to graduate. After hearing Elder Xian's words, everyone's expressions turned weird. Hui Yuhao's graduation test could be the most difficult in the history of Shrek Academy. At least, no one had done something like this before. Hui Yuhao nodded and replied, all right, I'll go on this mission, then. Elder Xian, I'll go with him. Tang Wutong said without hesitation. Hui Yuhao turned his head to look at her and shook his head seriously. He could take the risk, but he was not bringing Tang Wutong along with him on this dangerous mission. Even though he knew that his fighting strength was much greater with her around, it was not something that he wanted. There was nothing more important than her safety. Tang Wutong also looked at him and smiled. She said, if you don't let me go, I'll play hide and seek with you again. Do you think it's better for me to remain by your side and be protected by you, or for me to leave and you to be unable to find me when you get back? Her words stumped Hui Yuhao. He couldn't possibly run the risk of losing her again. Suddenly, there was a bitter smile on his face. Tang Wutong said seriously, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm thinking of a way to bring my father here to see you. If you leave and my father comes, he'll insist on leaving with me. I can't reject him. This is why I can only follow you to ensure that we are always together. Hui Yuhao couldn't say anything else, and only laughed bitterly. You can follow me, but you have to listen to me. Tang Wutong's expression turned gentler, and she hugged his arm, saying, since when have I disobeyed you? Hui Yuhao turned red. It wasn't that he was easily embarrassed. It was because this was a conference in the Sea Gods Pavilion. They had to be the first couple to do this in the Sea Gods Pavilion. Bei held in his laughter and lowered his head. The elders didn't have any misgivings, and only started chuckling. Elder Xian smiled. Younger people are indeed more energetic. All right, we'll do it this way. Yu Hao and Wu Tong will go. Yu Hao will be the leader. If Wu Tong doesn't listen to you, I give you permission to smack her butt. This time, Tang Wu Tong was the one who turned red. She complained, Elder Xian, you're teaching him the wrong things. Elder Xian laughed and said, I'm always like this. You should have known when you first met me. Wasn't he right? When they first met him, he was a drunkard. Apart from drinking, he was always eating chicken drumsticks. Bei said, Elder Xian, should the Tang sect send a few more people to follow Yu Hao and Wu Tong? I'm still a little worried. The Sun Moon Empire. Elder Xian gestured and replied, no, it's not always better with more people. It might be easier to escape with fewer people. Given Yu Hao and Wu Tong's abilities, they should be able to escape easily. Yu Hao, you must remember that you aren't the one leading this mission. It's mainly being spearheaded by those from the three empires in the Doluo continent. What you have to do is coordinate with them. Don't risk your life. When it comes to the assassination, you don't have to be a part of it. This was why I agreed with them. Otherwise, I wouldn't let you go. Your job is to help conceal everyone. Once you meet with any danger, you must quickly abscond no matter what. You must treat your safety as the first priority. Understand? Yu Hao nodded and answered, Elder Xian, I know my limits. I'll do my best to help them. If it doesn't work out, I won't force the issue. He might still be willing to risk his own life if it was before finding Tang Wu Tong. As for now, he wanted to safely live out his life with Tang Wu Tong. He was more afraid of death than anyone else. After this, issues regarding Shrek City and the training of the Soul Engineer Legions were discussed. Currently, Shrek Academy's 3 Soul Engineer Legions had been established. They had been fully equipped half a year ago. Right now, the Soul Engineers were undergoing training. For the Soul Engineer Legions to demonstrate their greatest fighting strength, it was something that couldn't be accomplished overnight. They had to coordinate perfectly with one another first. As one of the 3 Soul Engineer Legion commanders, Yu Hao still hadn't had a chance to train with his own Soul Engineers. However, the strength of the 3 Soul Engineer Legions could be seen after all the continuous training. They now had a certain standard of fighting strength. However, everything regarding these 3 Soul Engineer Legions was being kept a secret. Even the 3 empires in the original Doluo continent didn't know anything about these 3 Soul Engineer Legions. They only knew that Shrek Academy would be using them to deal with the Sun Moon Empire in the future. As time passed, the Tang sect strengthened the equipment of the 3 Soul Engineer Legions, especially in terms of stationary soul cannon shells. After Yu Hao succeeded in inventing Class 4 stationary soul cannon shells using simplified materials, many more stationary soul cannon shells were produced over the past 2 years. Some of them were left in Shrek City, while the rest of them were sold to the 3 empires as a means of strengthening their armies. At the same time, the Tang sect also used the Sugar Divine crossbow cannons to increase their revenue. In just a short 2 years, the Tang sect's wealth had increased significantly. As for the exact numbers, Yu Hao wasn't very clear. Bei was the one settling it. Compared to the others, he and Tang Wu Tong's most important mission was to increase their own cultivation. After all, they would be the Tang sect's greatest fighting strength in the future. The conference only ended after 2 hours. Elder Xian kept Yu Hao and Yang Wu Tong behind. As he watched the rest leave, Elder Xian nodded at the 2 of them and said, "Follow me." Elder Xian brought both of them into his room. Yu Hao closed the door and excitedly said, "Elder Xian, congratulations once again. You've finally become an ultimate Doluo." Elder Xian sighed and said, "It's not easy to become an ultimate Doluo. I finally found some tricks to doing it. It's going to be as difficult for you to become a titled Doluo as it was for me to become an ultimate Doluo. One problem you'll face is the formation of your second soul core. You can only become a titled Doluo by forming your second soul core. However, once you succeed, there'll be no one as strong as you. This is because you'll have 2 soul cores. These 2 soul cores will help you to become a transcendent Dolor as quickly as possible. Of course, you'll need to learn how to form your 3rd soul core when you want to become an ultimate Dolor in the future. Hui Yuhao's eyes brightened. He knew that Elder Xian wanted to impart some tricks for forming his 2nd soul core. It was right in time. Right now, he was most concerned about when he could become a titled Dolor. When he formed his 1st soul core, he was very confident. He felt that it wasn't going to be difficult for him to form his 2nd soul core in the future. At most, he would only be stuck at a bottleneck for some time. However, over the past 9 months, he had been struggling at this bottleneck. It was only then that he realized how scary it was. During the process of forming his 2nd soul core, his 1st soul core would undoubtedly be involved. He couldn't stabilize his 2nd soul core even with his spiritual power. At the start, he couldn't even form a soul power whirlpool. Although his control had increased over time, he couldn't stabilize his soul power whirlpool every time. It would be destroyed quickly. From there, he lost all chance of making a breakthrough. Elder Xian said, if you want to form your 2nd soul core, the greatest problem is not with your cultivation. With my cultivation, I could have already become an ultimate Dolor. The real problem is with your control over your soul power, spiritual power, and your 1st soul core. Hui Yuhao nodded. What Elder Xian mentioned were the problems he was facing. Elder Xian said, the successful formation of your 1st soul core can greatly help you to compress your soul power and make it even more immense. When the quality of your soul power improves by leaps and bounds, you'll experience massive improvements in terms of the strength, volume, and restoration ability of your soul power. This is why your abilities transform significantly when you become a titled Dolor. The formation of your 2nd soul core will differ greatly from the formation of your 1st soul core. This is also why it'll be so difficult for you to become an ultimate Dolor. The formation of your 2nd soul core can occur in many different ways, according to my years of experience. These different ways will lead to different effects. Oh? There are different ways of forming my 2nd soul core? Elder Xian's words undoubtedly opened another door for Hui Yuhao. He listened to Elder Xian very seriously along with Tang Wutong. These were exactly the problems that they were facing. Elder Xian continued, saying, when Elder Mu first guided me, he was pointing me in the direction of resonance. He was also saying that the first problem I'll need to settle before my 2nd soul core forms is the disruption caused by my 1st soul core. When your 1st soul core forms, it becomes the core of your soul power. All your soul power will circulate around it as the center. Simply put, your 1st soul core is like a circle, and all your soul power revolves around it. Your 1st soul core has a great impact on your soul power. This is why your soul power can be compressed as much as possible using your 1st soul core. This video will end here.